Welcome to the LNSAC National Symposium Advancing Integrity in College Sport. We come to you from the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. The topic, who is the college athlete who is not graduating?
My name is Julie Summer, and I am honored to serve as the first executive director of the Drake Group Education Fund. The theme of this year's conference is realizing the promise of graduation. We are focusing on college athletes at greatest risk for educational and financial exploitation, Division I scholarship athletes in the revenue sports of football and men's and women's basketball. A majority of these students are Black or other athletes of color. We seek to understand the causes of and the solutions to poor academic outcomes. It cannot be acceptable to have a 52% federal graduation failure rate, football, and 38% in men's and women's basketball. These are athletes who receive scholarships that cover the full cost of education. They must be enrolled in full-time programs of study in order to be eligible to play. They are recruited with the promise of outstanding educations at our best colleges and universities and access to training from the best coaches and sports facilities in the country. Fewer than 4% of NCAA Division I draft-eligible football and basketball players are selected each year in the NFL, NBA, or WNBA drafts. We recognize that these professional athletes may not need a college education to financially take care of themselves and their families. However, 96% of their teammates will not be as fortunate. It is important to the integrity of higher education for us to ask why this is happening. Are institutions spending sufficient resources and embracing policies to support better academic outcomes? We note that these athletes are primarily responsible for generating $15.8 billion each year in Division I revenues. We ask whether it is acceptable to spend only 19.2% of those revenues on athletic scholarships and only 1% on medical expenses. We are here to ask and answer these questions. You will hear from the athletes themselves, academic experts and coaches who work in the college sports system, and education and government leaders who are questioning this reality. We are grateful for their participation in the 2023 SAC Symposium. We begin by listening to college athletes themselves and asking the question, who is the athlete who is not graduating? I am honored to introduce the moderator of this morning's first session, the former award-winning sports columnist for the New York Times, the author of $40 Million Slaves, now writer-at-large for ESPN's Andscape, a Black media platform dedicated to creating, highlighting, and uplifting diverse stories of Black identity. Please welcome William C. Rhoden.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for being here early this morning. We're going to jumpstart, hopefully, your day. To my immediate left is Brendan Cole. Brendan is a former team captain at the Hampton University. We had a debate about that. I went down the road to the Morgan State University in Baltimore. Yeah, go Bears. Yeah, we didn't have things like that, the and all that. We just did the work. But okay, this is, but Brendan is a former football team captain at Hampton University, is now an athletic director at the field school here in DC, Brendan. Now, we've left a chair vacant, which is reserved for Maurice Claret. I think Maurice is maybe somewhere in Akron. He's driving. Donna and I have a wager. We're not going to tell you what the wager is, but we'll see. But we're leaving the chair open just in case it turns out right. And to Maurice's left is Sherelle Baker. Sherelle, who I just met but know of, is an All-American basketball, was an All-American basketball player at the University of Georgia. She was a former NBA player. Now she's the assistant women's basketball coach and recruiting coordinator at George Washington University. And I think Donna, she was a leader of steals. She led the nation in steals at Georgia, right? Yes. Yes, it was very impressive. And to Sherelle's left is Jackson Mateo. I made a mistake today. I was texting everybody late at night, and I just said Mateo, and I said no, it's Jackson Mateo. Jackson Mateo is a former University of Virginia football team captain, and now he's at the Woodbury Forest School as a head coach. So welcome, everybody. It's great being here. And this is our kind of first time getting together. So it was like a pickup game. So we're going to make it work, you know. But I asked everybody to begin the conversation with just a statement about, and by the way, Don and I were kind of debating when we were talking about the premise of this. We were kind of debating about this, you know, but we'll get into it. But I'd ask each of you to give one opening statement about your athletic experience, your intercollegiate athletic experience, what it meant to you and how it shaped your life. So why don't we go from far left, my far left, and this way, start with Mateo, with Jackson, and then work this way.
Thank you. Yeah, you all can call me Mateo. That's fine with me. I'll pretty much respond to anything.
Oh,
that's how it sounded back in the day. As was mentioned, I am Jackson Mateo. I graduated from the University of Virginia. I just finished my EDD and defended my capstone just about 2 weeks ago. So it's pretty fresh, and I've taken full advantage of that. Thankfully, some of my mentors and coaches pushed me to do so. My experience in college, it ultimately shaped my identity and my worldview. The coaches and the support staffs and the friends and teammates that I had and have still have allowed me to matriculate through life with the idea that there's really no circumstance or obstacle in front of me that I can't work to and through. And I am really fortunate that, I think most student athletes would say that there are some crossroads and decisions to be made once you're at the receiving institution. And I was really fortunate that the support staff and the mentors that guided me through my process, they helped me with everything from learning how to schedule my time, learning how to be an autonomous young person, and the life skills that I received from that have ultimately, like I mentioned, have allowed me to matriculate positively into my professional career and have shaped my worldviews, and not without its ups and downs, but I'm better because of those. And it's just put me in a really amazing position in life, and I do not take those years for granted. Those are my most formative years of my life. And I wouldn't be where I am or who I am without those years. So it was really, really impactful for me.
Good morning, everyone. I am Sherelle Baker, and I'll go into a little bit more details of my background. First of all, I'm really grateful to be here, and I want to give a shout out to my head coach, Coach Caroline McCombs from George Washington University. She's here to support me. But I actually originally grew up in the inner city. And when I was in 6th grade, I was then able to attend a predominantly white school, Greater Atlanta Christian School. So I've been adapted to both cultures, and I've been very, very fortunate. So I was able to earn a full scholarship to the University of Georgia. And I was able to have, like Jackson, so many different mentors, and that were professional athletes themselves. And what they instilled into me was to go to college. School is very, very important. Academics is first, and then you have basketball. There's not much time for partying. There's not much time to socialize. You're there for one reason. So my mentors they actually put the fear into me before I even stepped foot on the campus at the University of Georgia. But my overall experience at the University of Georgia, I played for a Hall of Fame coach, Coach Andy Landers, excuse me. Graduating from Georgia, all that I endured, all that I went through, school, practices, games, travel, the adversity, leaving Georgia, I understood that I can almost go through anything in life. So I have a lot of takeaways from college that I still live by today. And I really had a great time, great overall experience in college. And I hope today that I'm able to impact someone's life and they pick up something from my experience at the University of Georgia.
Yes, great job. So my name is Brendan Cole. I did go to the Hampton University.
Stop it.
And so just a little bit about my journey. I'm from Hampton, Virginia. I don't know if many people know where that is. I always say I went to the same school as Allen Iverson, Bethel High School. And then I was fortunate enough I transferred and went to a prep school called Christ Church School, where I played football and basketball. And that was a big culture shock for me. And then went to an HBCU like Hampton. So I had a pretty well diverse background kind of coming into college, just due to my 2 years at a prep school and then going to public school my whole life and going to an HBCU, which was very fortunate for me. And when I hear Sherelle, I'm sorry, I wanted to get it right. That's why I had to talk about mentors and things like that. I was kind of hard-headed my first year at Hampton University. When I got there, I kind of knew what I wanted to do. I was raised with my father, who was a drill sergeant in the military. So I kind of already had like, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to do. Nobody can tell me anything. But I was blessed to have, when I got to college, we had a head coach, and then that coach unfortunately got let go. And a new coach came in who served as a great mentor to me. And I would say, to answer the question, college football really taught me how to bounce back. Like every year I made all conference we were in the MEAC at that time. I got benched the first game of the season. It's a true story. My sophomore year, my junior year, and my senior year, I got benched the first game of the season and ended up making all conference those years. So I think college football taught me that nobody owed me anything. My father also would tell me that, but I would just go all the time. But I would go into situations with the mindset that I'm going to take what I want. And the biggest part of being on a team is I didn't know people's religious backgrounds. I didn't know their political beliefs. I didn't know anything, but I knew we had a common goal and we were all fighting for that common goal. And that's just helped me so much in my professional career. I don't need to know too much about anybody. If we're coming here and we have a common goal, let's work to get it. Let's work to get it done. And that's the biggest thing my college athletic experience taught me.
That's great. Another overall, we're kind of going on script, but just for the record, I had a great time. College athlete. It was back in the dark ages, but at Morgan every day, I just thank I just thank God that I went to Morgan, got an athletic scholarship. It was just wonderful. So that's the prism through which I look at it. It's a largely very positive experience. And I guess what we're here to discuss is how the intrusion of business, when it became a big capitalistic enterprise, how that has basically changed the experience. Before I get into that, I want each of you to talk about, I'm obsessed with this new phenomenon of name, image, likeness, and the transfer portal. The idea of having athletes, of some of the numbers I see, making $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, and it's phenomenal. And I guess what I want to know from each of you, I'm asking you to do a little stretching, is that how do you think your experience would have been different had you been coming out of high school today with NIL possibilities, being unencumbered, being able to transfer? How do you think your experience would have been different? And maybe you could look at some of the people you coach to give me an idea. But just starting with, let's start with you.
I would love to.
Yeah.
So my experience, I graduated from the University of Georgia in 2006. And at that time, I had a lot of my friends, not my coaches, but my friends, my family. And I'm being very, very transparent here. They would ask me, while I was playing, my family would, drive up to my game. And I lived maybe an hour and 15 minutes from the University of Georgia. And my family, my cousins, friends, they would ask me, you're on the poster, you don't get any money for that? And, I never even thought about it, honestly. Like, I never even thought about it. So I do believe that NIL is a good thing, and it could be a curse. It's so broad, it's general. It's a lot of falling pieces to name, image, and likeness. I do think, at times what student athletes, endure during college without having any time, to have a job, basketball or your sport. For me, it was basketball. Your sport is your job. And I had one of my cousins say to me, why should they pay you? Because you're getting a scholarship. You're getting paid $50,000 for your scholarship, and that, that could be a part of it. And at the same time, yes, I'm getting a scholarship, but I don't have time to do anything else but go to class, study hall, practice. I don't even have time to party. Or if I wanted to do a commercial, I couldn't. There's no time. So for now, the rules have changed a lot, and they will continue to change. And I honestly feel, and I know there's a fine line right now. NLI, is the big thing. There's going to be another big thing, pretty soon in the next few years. Would I have enjoyed NIL? I don't think so. During my time, I never thought about it. I had one goal. Like Brandon, I had one goal: to be successful academically and on the court as well. So for me, I was fine without it. Now, in our current day, I think it's good for certain people. Certain people have different situations where they need it, and in college, you don't understand a lot of the student athletes, what they go through. I went through a lot. Did I broadcast it? Did I share it with everyone? No. Everyone has a story. So you can't judge. We can't judge. Our society these days, we continue to judge a lot without knowing anyone's background. So overall, to answer your question, when I graduated from the University of Georgia, I was fine without having an NIL deal. I had a lot of people to, try to persuade me that I needed to ask for something, but I don't succumb to peer pressure that easily. And in the current day, I think it's perfectly fine, with what's changed. Our generation, this age has changed tremendously, and it will continue to change. So I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, that was good. That was actually very good. Jackson. And by the well, no, let's stay on script. But Jackson.
Like Sherelle mentioned, NIL is so broad right now, and very little legislation to actually hold parties accountable for being able to appropriately take advantage of one's name, image, and likeness. Me personally, how would that affected my experience? I was a 300+ pound offensive lineman, and I wasn't very pretty either. So I don't think anyone wanted to use my name, certainly not my image, for anything. So, I think what I think about when I hear name, image, likeness is the goal to me, the goal of higher ed and these institutions is ultimately to help these young people matriculate through college and attain an education and a degree. And like Sherelle mentioned, while on one hand, we cannot, there's no possible way to appropriately look at someone else's background and say, if you're choosing the University of Georgia to go there for NIL opportunities, who am I to say that you're wrong in doing so? Your background and your story might be completely different than the next person's background and story. Where I have just a moral confliction to the way that NIL is changing student athletes and their ability to go to different universities, I would just challenge those student athletes to understand that ultimately, what is going to help you get further in life? Is it going to be the education, or will it be a $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 opportunity to benefit from your NIL? So that's what I would say about it. And then the second point, the transfer portal, I was in college at a time where the first 4 years of my college career, this is embarrassing. I can't believe I'm saying this in front of people. We were the losingest Division I FBS college football program in the country, next to Kansas at the time, 4 years from 2012 to 2011 to 2015. And at that time, transferring was kind of taboo. You didn't want to leave the institution you were at, especially not a place like UVA. There's an amazing education there and an amazing experience. But the way that coaches move so freely around these institutions and get buyouts from their different institutions, and they're just fully free to recruit anybody to their school, form a relationship with their family, and then the next thing you know, you don't win enough games and you're out. It does put in question to me why student athletes haven't been able to move laterally to different institutions. But again, this transfer portal thing, it is a bit of the Wild West. Guys are transferring 2, 3, 4 times. And again, I just go back to the idea of institutions in higher ed and what they're there for. I believe that they're there to help young people matriculate through their college experience, give them a degree and an education, because those two things are different, and help them mold themselves into the best versions of themselves. And are they doing that if they are transferring 2, 3, 4 times? I don't know. That wasn't my experience, but that's kind of how I view NIL and the transfer portal. I think they're amazing. Initially, I think they're amazing opportunities kind of at face value, but without some form of accountability or framework or legislation to ultimately get back to the goal of institutions of higher ed, I just don't know if it's being utilized with the ultimate goal of higher ed and the ultimate best interest of the student athlete. So that's kind of how I view it. And I'm sticking to it.
So I'm a little torn. To answer the question, do I wish we had NIL when I was at Hampton University? 1000%. Especially, I have a different experience because I was at a HBCU. And we didn't really get commercial time, or there wasn't a lot of big TV ads coming through. But boy, with Instagram and social media, I think I could have made a killing with the NIL while I was in college. And my experience at Hampton, I don't know how it is at UVA or Georgia, but like on Sunday or Saturday, the cafeteria closes at 5:30. And after that, it's like, hey, figure out how you're going to eat for the rest of the night. I'm 250 pounds. I can't stop eating at 5:30 on a Sunday and a Saturday. And it's like, well, how are you going to get food? You're going like, okay, Pell Grant doesn't get here for another 2 months, so I don't got that. MEAC check is $200. Can't do much with that. And so you just get, I've seen some teammates go out and try to do things to get money that you wouldn't even believe, just to eat, to genuinely eat food, not to buy clothes, to eat. Like they were just hungry. I have teammates that had kids, multiple kids, and you don't get any money. So when people say, and I love what Jackson said about the difference between a degree and an education, that is a great point. And I think a lot of the times, and this is, of course, to my experience, I'm not speaking for anybody else, but a lot of my teammates didn't care about the degree or the education. It was like, all right, I'm playing football and I'm broke. Like I nothing else to really think about. I'm broke. Like, what do you want me to think about? I'm play football. Hopefully I go to the league. Other than that, there's nothing really to talk about. I don't care about science class or my oral communications presentation. So I think NIL would have helped tremendously at Hampton University from the times I was there. But I will say, we were speaking about this a little last night. I do think it's kind of like Motown, right? Like when the record deals first started for these artists, and they're all just signing like, oh my God, I get $20,000, blah, 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 blah. 20 years later, they're like, I signed the worst contract of my life. Because what I tell a lot of the young athletes that I still speak to, and I guess they call me a mentor, is when you sign your name, image, and likeness, you're giving this company your name, image, and likeness. So if this company comes out and says something that you totally disagree with, a huge thing that you just morally disagree with, your name, image, and likeness is attached to that. So I think we can't devalue what those three things are. Is my name, image, and likeness worth $50,000 to a company that I don't believe in how they do business? I mean, and that's to the person to decide, but that's the type of conversations why I think these young athletes need teams now. I mean, as young as 16, you might need a marketing manager, an agent, communications person. You might need a whole team around you before you start signing these deals and doing these things. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how I would.
Yeah, but isn't that a good thing though? In a way, all of you. I mean, we're all, sort of mature. You're coaches. You coach young people, and the thing was always young people didn't have money management skills. Young people didn't, they didn't get face the real world until too late. Doesn't this whole thing with NIL? Let's just deal with that. Doesn't that kind of put you in a position where you do have to learn how to deal with money? You're exposed to the business world, the business of yourself. I mean, isn't that a positive?
Well, yes, it can be a positive, but I also think of who makes the decision of setting up my team at 16 years old, 17 years old. Are my parents responsible for that? Like, is my father going to say, okay, this is going to be your marketing person, this is going to be your agent, and then they didn't even play college sports. So how do they know? I mean, they manage money, but they might not have managed this amount of money and understand that I have to make these amount of plays to get this money or whatever it is. And I think it is a good thing, but I think it should be on the institutions really more so than anybody else on making sure these kids understand these things. I don't think it should just be left on a 17-year-old shoulders to figure out, like, to be LeBron James and be like, oh, my best friend's this, and it just works out. I don't personally believe that.
So, and I want to add on to Brendan, when you're 18 years old and you attend college, and you earn the scholarship, right? It opens up so many avenues, so many doors, right? And at that point, you are a brand, right? So at 18 years old, you have a very, very high standard. It's only one way down, right? It's only one way to fall off. So the moment you fall off, and at 18 years old, I completely agree with you. Are we giving all the information needed to all of our 18 to 22-year-olds when they attend school for NIL? Okay, so when I attend a University of Georgia and I get a Gatorade deal or whatever the Gatorade deal may be, I have to walk a little bit different. I have to talk a little bit different. My decision-making is different because once I make a mistake, everything is lost. And I don't think our 18-year-olds to 22-year-olds fully understand that aspect of it. And it happens a lot. I see it today. They can't be, it's a fine line from being a brand and just enjoying that college experience. So I just wanted to add on to what Brendan was saying with the name, image, and likeness.
And I would say it is a good thing. I think it is a good thing. I think it's positive in that we're suddenly people are realizing the value, not only the monetary value, but also just the value that student athletes bring to these institutions, not only not only monetarily, but pride and no one, look, excuse me, anyone from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, but I don't think anyone would know Tuscaloosa, Alabama if the University of Alabama wasn't winning football national championships, right? And so they bring so much attention to these cities and they generate massive amounts of revenue. So ultimately, yes, I think it is a positive thing. As it stands right now, we see the University of Georgia, University of Alabama, Texas, they're able to integrate NIL and collectives at their institutions in the blink of an eye. That was the first thing that these universities did because they know that this is going to attract high-level student athletes to their universities. And I think right now, that's what everyone's learning is, okay, how are we going to move with this? I was on a Zoom with some University of Virginia football alumni and members of their athletic department maybe 3 weeks ago. And there's a building being built right now, and currently they're stopping they're changing their original plan to make sure that they can integrate an NIL center into this brand new building, and they're asking for alums to raise that money for the collective and for that space because it's ever changing, it's so new. So ultimately, I think it's good. I do think it's positive. If there isn't appropriate support and resources at the receiving institution, then 17, 18, 19-year-olds are going to be tasked with managing large amounts of money. And I know what I would have done if I was a 17, 18, 19-year-old with $50,000, right? I just wouldn't have managed it responsibly. So unless there are those resources and support systems there, then it is just a bit like the Wild Wild West. And that's kind of how I feel about it as it stands.
So as a news flash, we want to bring in Maurice Clarett, who, Maurice, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Great. Turn up the volume up. Hey, thank you so much, Maurice. This is great. And thank you for the effort. I think everybody at the table could agree that talent is one thing, but if you make the effort is 100%. So thank you so much for making the effort. I won't ask you where you are. No, don't go there. Hey, listen, Maurice, thank you so much. Maurice Clarett was a former Ohio State Buckeyes football running back. He led the Buckeyes to the 2002 championship team. I was there. And he's now the founder of a successful behavioral health agency and host of a top-rated business podcast. I know there's much more to your story, Maurice, but when we were talking about, we've been talking about name, image, likeness. We've been talking about the transfer portal. And I really had you in mind when I was thinking of this question. I asked everybody if NIL existed when they were coming out of high school, how would the trajectory of their careers change? And I thought about you because you probably would have been a multimillionaire by the end of your freshman year, because you were a highly acclaimed athlete coming out of high school. You made a great reputation as a freshman. So just curious, how do you think, what do you think of this whole thing of now athletes being able to capitalize on their name, image, likeness? And how do you think the trajectory of your career would have changed? I know that, I think in your second year, there was an issue about somebody paying for your transportation to a good friend's funeral. Well, with NIL, that would have been moot. So just how do you think that where we are today would have changed the trajectory of your college athletic career?
Once again, thank you all for having me, and I'm happy to be a part of this. I never thought that I would even see NIL being a thing, not in my lifetime, but it would have drastically changed my entire life. The sole reason of me getting in trouble in college was my transmission had broke in the car that I had at the time, and I went to a dealership to use a vehicle just because I couldn't afford $1,700 or the $1,800 it was to fix the transmission. And of course, it's noted and documented, over those 4 months, we probably made the university, $80 million. I humbly say I played a major role in putting the Ohio State brand back to where it's at and contributing to that season. And going to win a championship. But when my car broke down, I didn't have the money to fix it. So I'll end up going to a dealer to use a car, and obviously that was illegal. The deal what you're talking about in regards to a friend's funeral, I was at the national championship game, and a friend had died, and I couldn't afford a ticket from Phoenix, Arizona, or Scottsdale back to Youngstown, Ohio, and then back out to the game, and that caused a rift between me and the university. And it was common sense to me at that point in my life. I said, man, how can we generate all this money? How can I go to the bookstore and you see all these jerseys with number 13 on them? And these things never existed prior to me playing football there. And you would see how much revenue was being made off of me. It was like very common sense to me. I said, it just doesn't make any sense. And so my things in my life would have drastically changed because I would have more than enough money to either get a plane ticket or have some sort of deal, or either a business owner or a booster or somebody would have been able to help me. And I probably would have never in my life had a falling out with the university. And I heard, I came in, I was getting off the freeway, and I heard part of the panel speaking. But every time the NIL thing comes up, they always say, like, young kids mismanage money, but there's adults who mismanage money, and I always want to name that. They're farly educated, and I never want that to be the reason as to why we don't give these kids what they justly earn. If you have the ability to be a factor inside of a brand, or you bring value to a brand, you should be compensated accordingly. Whatever you do with that money, and I do believe, I don't want to say this, I do believe you do need a team around you. You need people to advise you financially. You need these kids to become financially literate. And if they don't have the support, you need to take them through the education of some sorts. And maybe there's some controls you put on getting the money or giving the money to the kids once they, pass certain thresholds academically, or just like anything else. You have to pass the test to get your license. Maybe you have to pass some sort of internal test for money to be relinquished to you at a certain point. I don't know. I'm just throwing out ideas, but I'm just happy that it's in a state where just the younger people are being compensated. And this past season, I worked with a UConn basketball team. I've been working with them for the past 4 years, and they obviously won the championship. But everybody knows, as a student athlete, your days are stacked to the gills with just athletic preparation. So there's very little time to go over this information outside of your coursework. So there really needs to be an effort by the NCAA. There needs to be effort by the university, and effort even by the support staff of the kids, the parents, the uncles, the aunts, the grandmothers, whoever. Because in a lot of cases, I remember these girls up there at UConn, these young girls were making a ton of money, and then just some of the star players were making above average money. But I don't know. I'm happy that I had a chance to make it, but I'm even happier that these young kids have the ability to benefit off of the work that they're doing.
Let me ask each of you this, and Marie, since you're on the highway, we'll start with you. My sort of follow-up question was that, since the theme of this conference is using the college athletic experience to earn a degree, and the question is, does NIL, transfer portal, I'm just reading something here from Sportico, and it was saying that heading into the 2022-2023 academic year, over 2,000 football players and 1,600 men's basketball players had entered the transfer portal and are seeking to potentially take advantage of the one-time transfer exception, allowing athletes and sports to transfer. So my question to each of you, and Maurice, we can start with you and go down the panel. Does everything we've been talking about, NIL, transfer portal, does it push you and make graduation, obtain a degree, more obtainable? Does it push you closer to that goal? Or do you think it takes you further and further away from that goal?
I don't know. No, I mean, that's a good question. Well, for some kids now, there may not be a rush to get out of school to go try to make it professionally in the NFL, but that's such a small group of people. I don't know. I don't have a clean answer one way or another, and I don't want to sit up here and try to sound smart. Maybe one of the other panelists have a complete thought, but I don't know, I don't have any facts to support it.
Why don't we go to the panel, Sherelle and Mateo Jackson, and then Sherelle, you go first, and then.
Well, in my opinion, with women's basketball in the WNBA, and I was very fortunate to play in the WNBA and in Europe as well. back when I played in the WNBA, you did not make a lot of money, but I had a very, very good agent. I was able to have a few endorsement deals, which helped out tremendously. In Europe, I actually made a lot more money. I mean, it was almost tripled in Europe, and it's tax-free. So I'm gonna sit that aside. I just wanted to give you that information. Obtaining towards graduation, I would say I was a student athlete. I didn't like school. I was ready to get out of school. You know, I did not like to attend class. I did not like to attend study hall. I wanted to play basketball. My tutoring, my study hall sessions helped out a lot, but I was ready to get out of school. So I was not the person to, if I did have a NIL deal, to stay in school, no matter, you know, the amount, because I knew, you know, from what my agent was saying, you know, to me back in the day, you know, I can make that same amount, you know, in Europe, you know, and if I played in the WNBA, you know, the endorsements would compensate as well. So for me, I would have really gone towards leaving and, you know, making more money outside of college. Just the simple fact I did not like school. But now I kind of think about it, during COVID, you know, that was a good opportunity for me to get my master's, and I didn't.
Yeah. First of all, hey, Maurice Claret, I'm a huge fan of yours, man. So thanks for joining in. So I do think where NIL stands, I do think that without the appropriate support and without the appropriate structures and frameworks at these institutions, that idea lends itself to what Sherelle just hit on, is that these student athletes will be exposed to a bit more money, appropriate compensation for their efforts. And right now, with the current lack of structures in place, I think it does get away from the ultimate goal of these institutions, which is to help these young people graduate. Now, I tell my players this all the time. I do believe that organizations are perfectly designed for the results that they get. And currently, the NCAA and these institutions, specifically these Power 5 institutions, are perfectly designed for the results that they have been getting. The richer are getting richer, and the student athletes have been working and performing at the highest level of competition with little to no compensation for their efforts. And so I think that in 5-6 years, this conversation will look a little bit different with some appropriate structures and support systems in place. And I think that you can mend the two ideologies, and that student athletes will be able to benefit from their name, image, and likeness, while simultaneously going after a degree in an education. But where we stand right now, it's just so new. There's just not many support system structures and collectives in place where we can kind of appropriately mend these two ideologies. So in 5-6 years, it looks different for me, but currently I would say that NIL is kind of getting away from that. But again, how can you blame student athletes from wanting to benefit from their efforts? And like Maurice just mentioned, the UConn women's basketball team, how can you blame them from wanting to get some financial compensation for their abilities? Sherelle mentioned it, WNBA players, the lack of compensation, and also one of my best friends, she played soccer at Virginia. I mean, when they go and play pro, you know, they're living with host families. And so these student athletes are just not seeing the financial compensation. So I can't blame them, again, because currently organizations are perfectly designed for the results they get. They haven't been paid, they haven't been compensated. And currently where it stands, it's getting away from the goal of higher ed. And I can't blame the kids for wanting to go pursue deals with Toyota or a Ford dealership, or bring some type of notoriety to a brand. Can't blame them. But I'd like for it to see, just as a a stakeholder in higher ed and University of Virginia. I'd just like to see that mend a bit more so we can ultimately, kill two birds with one stone, an education, a degree, and financial compensation for athletic efforts.
Before I hear from Brendan, I must say that, and anybody here who's got children who are parents, one of the joys is when you hear them say, I'm trying to tell my kids, I'm trying to get this to my, so when you're talking about, and I tell young people all the time, and I hear Maurice talking about it, is one of the joys of getting older. When you hear young people who now are either coaches or have children, see their children look at them and say, you know what, you were right. But I'm sorry, this is a commercial break for parents, but.
I guess I'm kind of on the fence. I think that's the easy way out. But like Sherelle said, I also was not the biggest fan of school, like just going in class. I mean, I think I was smart, but I wasn't the biggest fan of school, but I loved college. So I think those two things are different, because if you happen to be, Angel Reese just said the other day on an interview, they were asking her about going professional. She was like, oh, I'm in no rush. She was like, I'll go to grad school if I can. I'm making more money than some of the WNBA players. And so I thought about it like, that's an interesting point. Like, why would I rush out of college? Why would I go to pay bills when I'm living in a dorm for free or my apartment for free? Like, and I'm making money? I'll stay in college forever if you let me. But to Jackson's point, the rich get richer, because I think the top 1%ers like an Angel Reese will have that benefit of making enough money that going professional almost doesn't make sense at the time. But then you have those athletes who are like on the bubble, who they can make some money while they're in college. They're comfortable in college. Producing has a lot to do with being comfortable and knowing the system. So why jump out there to the NFL, take a chance? You never know what can happen. So that might encourage me to stay in college. So I think I'll lean towards it. It might encourage the majority to stay in college if they can make a little money, wake up at 10 o'clock, go to the parties, go to class, live that life instead of, when you get older, you wake up for work, go to work, come home, watch TV, go to sleep. So, I mean, I think it could encourage young people to stay in college if I had to choose a set.
All right. Let me ask each of you. Each of you, this is very fun. This is a pretty good representation. And the question gets into, what was your mentality going into your intercollegiate experience? We have a diversity of experience. Maurice, you went to, I call them now, what I call them, you went to factories. You went to a factory, Ohio State. You're playing in front of 100,000 people. It's a whole different thing. Brendan, you went to an HBCU. University of Georgia, it's kind of a factory, but not necessary for women's basketball. University of Virginia, as you mentioned, Jackson, it was kind of a factory, but it was sort of a warehouse within a factory. I'd like to know from each of you, what was your mentality when you went into your different experiences? Was the degree, getting the degree, number one? Was it playing professionally, number one? What was sort of the reason that you went there? Did you use sports to discover an education? And maybe, Maurice, just briefly begin with you, because you went to, let's start with you and then let's go around the table.
Yeah, for me, it was a means to an end. I got nominated to be the Parade All-American Player of the Year, and I had seen other people who were the Parade All-Americans and what they had went on to accomplish, and they all went to the NFL. And so when I went to Ohio State, I thought to myself that this is just a means to an end, and I think context plays a big role. This is the MTV Crib era, early 2000s, and I didn't have any interest in any education. I broadly say it, I was pushed through school ever since the 9th grade. So I wasn't academically prepared even going into college, let alone there was nothing that I've seen that I can do academically to get me to the amount of money I thought that I would have through athletics. So initially, I just had no interest in school. It wasn't until I got in trouble after school and went through my life challenges and in prison that I actually fell in love with education. It's actually, reading that changed my life. And part of me going back and talking to younger people is just saying, I wish I would have knew that younger. I wish I would have knew that I was more than just somebody who was able to play sports. But that was just my experience. College was just a stepping stone to eventually get to the NFL.
Jackson, then Sherelle, then.
A bit different for me. I was actually originally committed to Temple University up in Philadelphia, and I was a mid-tier kind of group of 5 scholarship player. So I had all the MAC, Temple and Ohio University, Buffalo. And at the time, I was seeing the dollar sign, which is the scholarship in my case. So you're getting all these letters and you're like, man, I'm so fired up, verbally commit to Temple University after my official. And it was my dad who was like, whoa. Yeah, I said I didn't do it with his permission. I just committed on the spot. My mom and I went up there for an official. So when I came back down, he said, what'd you do? I said, I committed. He said, oh, shoot, man, what did you just do? So it was probably 6 months before signing day, and my relationship with the recruiting coach at Temple University was kind of falling off, and then he left school. So I ended up getting a preferred walk-on spot at Virginia. And so as a walk-on, I think that my mentality was, oh man, walk-on is such a different experience. There's 85 scholarship players, and there are, 105 get into camp and they carry 125 in the season. And on our shirts, these two can certainly attest to it. You're going to get your number on every shirt, every pair of shorts, every backpack you own. And all my best friends had their number on it. Number 9, number 15 was a quarterback. And my number was 117. And I was like, I was in the walk-on corner. And Maurice knows what I'm talking about. And I was like, and I was in the corner, the walk-on corner, and I was taking scissors to every backpack and every shirt and every pair of shorts that I owned. And I would cut the number out of the clothes. I didn't want it on me. I hated that I was a walk-on. I hated that my friends were on scholarship. And I was really just there to show everybody that I was really about that life as well. And ultimately earning a scholarship after my first year. And then after that, it was like, okay, what else can I get out of this? I'm going to squeeze every drop out of this. And being able to matriculate and ultimately graduate undergrad. One of my mentors is in the crowd today. His name's Dr. Jerry Starger from Virginia, and helped me through my graduate experience. I was redshirted my first year, so I was able to get that master's year on the back end. And then again, it's kind of the same mentality, stayed as a graduate assistant, just kept taking everything I could, everything they give me. And so I think it was that mentality of like, I'm just going to take everything you give me. And I'm not going to be a guy who just gets the degree and kind of says, I'm on to the next thing. I'm going to sit here. And as a matter of fact, you invited me here as a walk-on. I'm going to get a scholarship, and then I'm going to take more, and I'm going to get more, and I'm going to squeeze every drop out of this factory.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was kind of my mentality going through.
Mm-hmm.
Really good story. Really good story. My mentality going into Georgia was to outwork everyone. I had a lot of mentors, like I previously said, and they kind of gave me the rundown for everything. And they said, it's going to be a lot of temptation. You're at a big time school. You're going to have the parties, especially after the football games. You're going to have the sorority parties. You're going to go to, you're going to meet friends, fraternities. You're going to attend the fraternity parties, but it's going to be up to you to make the right decision every single day. I won't be there to help you and hold your hand and spoon feed you. So I took that like a grain of salt. I think I narrowed my decision. It was Georgia, Rutgers, Clemson, and Old Dominion. I wanted to be close to home, with my family and friends, and I wanted them to be able to drive up to see me play, without any difficulty. So when I attended Georgia, before I got to Georgia, Saudi Roundtree, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the name, and there's a lot of big time names from the University of Georgia women's basketball players. Saudi Roundtree gave me a call. This was maybe my sophomore, junior year. And, she's persuading me to attend the University of Georgia. And as soon as I hung up the phone, I went to my brother and I said, do you know who just called me? Sadia Roundtree. I'm going to Georgia. So I was really overly excited. We maintained a friendship. She was more of my mentor, and she's basically given me the rundown of, you don't need to befriend any of the guards because you're trying to compete against the guards. The post players, you can befriend them. You're not in competition with them. You're still a team. On the court, it doesn't matter who you're going against. You need to make sure you give them the business. So I had that mentality the entire time. Overall, coming from my immediate family, I was the first to receive a college degree. So that was my overall mentality going to the University of Georgia.
Yes, mine was a little different. So as I said, my father was a drill sergeant, and growing up, I remember I could not stand my father. I could not. I hated him, I swear. And so my parents got separated when I was in middle school. Excuse me. When I was in middle school going into high school. And then that's when I was like, oh my God, he's not here. Like, life was good, but my grades dropped significantly. And I remember I was telling my mom, I was like, I'm just gonna go to the military. I'm gonna end up just like him. It's just what it is. I'm not gonna go to college. And I remember she called him and he called me. He said, you wouldn't make it in the military either. You can't make it in school. And I was like, dang. I said, what am I gonna do? Right, so that was my father. My father was straight to it. Listen, it is what it is. Like, don't think you can make it in the military. You can't make it past 10th grade English. And so my mom, I was like, all right, Mom, I gotta figure something out. So that's when I ended up transferring to the boarding school, started lifting weights, started getting better and better and better. And then out of college, I was going to the University of Massachusetts. But then I ended up switching and going to Hampton University. And I just remember, I didn't talk to my father as much, but I remember calling him and I'm like, hey, I'm going to Hampton University, I'm gonna play football. He was like, oh, okay. He was like, well, they're gonna use you. So be sure to get something out of the deal. Like, it was just that simple for him. And I was just like, dang, say you happy or something. Like, give me something. Golly. But it was just, that's who he was, right? So he was like, hey, listen, they're gonna use you, so use them for something. And my mom on the other side is like, oh my God, throwing me a party and thinking I'm the best thing since sliced bread. But so going into college, I always had my father's voice in the back of my head, like, okay, well, I go to the NFL, maybe, hopefully I'm at an HBCU, some of us get in, some of us don't. It's a long shot, but it could happen. But at the end of the day, what can I get out of them? I'm trying to set myself up for, and I was fortunate to think like this. I'm trying to set myself up for after college. A lot of my teammates who have been, the person leading their house since a young age, they didn't have that mindset. They were thinking the right now. Right? Like the right now, what can I do right now? But I was fortunate enough to think down the line. I knew I wasn't going to be a Hall of Famer or anything like that, or make $1 million doing it, but I can get my degree. I need to learn something. I need to meet people and build myself up for success going forward. So that was my mindset and mentality. So my transition wasn't as hard as a lot of my best friends.
Again, I keep wanting to move on to something, but this whole idea of exploitation, are you the carpenter or the tool? That's sort of big time college athletic. Are you going to be the carpenter or are you going to be the tool? And Maurice, just kind of briefly, I noticed you've got you're wearing Ohio State gear. Is that what you have on? You've got the Ohio State jacket. And I guess I was happy to see that. And my question to you, and you could answer this briefly or whatever, but have you made peace with Ohio State? I mean, you're wearing, so obviously have, but clearly the most valuable thing to Ohio State and all these institutions is a degree. I remember Joe Dumars, who, was a Hall of Fame player, and he went to school and he didn't get his degree. And he was lecturing his kids about something. And his daughter told him, well, heck, you didn't get a degree. And that spurred him to go back and get his degree because he realized that the most important thing to that institution was not necessarily TV revenue, but was that degree. That was the most important thing that they could give you as a degree. So my question, maybe it's just, I'm not sure if each of you have graduated, but Maurice, have you made peace with Ohio State? And do you feel that you got as much out of them that they got out of you?
Yes, good question. I'll answer the stages going back. So I made peace with Ohio State when I was in prison. just because I had an understanding on sort of what we're talking about now, that it's a business, right? Anything that got done to me or that happened at Ohio State was one, my ignorance and just behaving as a kid, and you're taking extra benefits, but then two, like it's great to come and get the kid out the neighborhood, but once the brand had got lifted up, they didn't want to associate themselves with that anymore, right? Because the brand had made so much money, they thought that it could sustain itself without me. So that was a part of just me just coming to grips that there's just this inner city kid just doesn't fit in within this big brand, and there was some maturing that needed to take place on my half, and it was some with them. But I've like put Ohio State into a different box. The people of Ohio love me. I do business all throughout the state. We own a bunch of medical practices throughout the state. So when I wear the brand, it's more so for the people who appreciate me, who watched us play back then, or who just have me in their memory bank from lifting the brand back up and making it into what it is. In regards to the institution, it's a business. You know what I'm saying? So a few years ago, there was an attorney group, and there was some large donors who tried to forge a relationship with the university from a formal standpoint, and the university didn't want to do it, but that's on them, and I can care less about it. But for me, I went out there, I put my blood, sweat, and tears into the university. I put my blood, sweat, and tears into the brand. I never went to go play for money. I knew it was a means to an end, but I paid for the appreciation of people saying, "Hey, man, you did a good job. You gave all your effort," and that's the stuff you did when you were a young kid before money ever got into this stuff. And so, I wear the logo for a different reason, just because I appreciate it. I love what it does for the state. I even love what my affiliation or my opportunity has done for my life. I love the fact that people still can help to recapture those memories. But formally with the university, it's not, we've not taken a step, and it hasn't been because of me. Like I give you a quick story as an example, but you can just see how the kid becomes the product. I went back in 2011 or 12, and I enrolled myself back in classes, and I went over to Gene Smith, who's the athletic director, and I said, "Hey, Gene, you have a ton of money that you all can use for the continuum of education, like where they go and pay for athletes' degrees who either went to the NFL or have to come back and to complete it." And I knew how much money they had because I had researched it prior to talking to him. So I went to his office, and he sent me over to a gentleman by the name of John Macco in Student Athlete Support Services. And he said, "Maurice," he was like, "Gene Smith can greenlight this whole thing, and he can pay for your education, and he can pay for the classes that you've already paid for to come back and get your degree." But he didn't want to do it just because he didn't want the association of me with the university. And so there's this white glove thing to where say, "Hey, we don't like you, but we kind of want to keep you at a distance." But I live in Columbus. I stay around. I don't want to cause any negative waves with the university. So I just keep things where they're at right now. I have success in life. 90% of the business that I probably do throughout the state is people knowing that I play for the university. So I get everything out of the university, even if they don't want to give it to me. You know what I'm saying? So hopefully that makes sense. But I don't know. I'm successful. I will say this. I'm not there not because I don't want to be there. My daughter went to go visit Loyola Marymount with my wife, and I thought they were coming back on Sunday, but they're coming back later on this afternoon, and I couldn't make it because I don't have a babysitter for my kid. He's at daycare, and then I just came to handle business. So I wish I was there. I will apologize for that on that behalf, but hopefully that answers your question and a lot of other stuff. But I don't know. I wish I was there. I guess that's the short of the long.
Brother. So each of you are educators in your own way. You're high school, you're a head coach, you're a coach, but you teach. And I guess my question, and no offense to the young student athletes who are here, but do you get frustrated? I mean, do you think, I don't want to use the word idiots, but when there were young people and you know that you were in the same spot, are the young people you deal with smarter than you? Do they know more? Maurice, I think about you when people will Google you, and they Google you and see everything you've been through, all the mistakes, the high point, does it matter? Do they listen? So we can start here and go down. We're here talking about the value of education. Do young people that you deal with get it, or are young people eternally? Well, do they get it? I don't want to insult.
Well, to answer your question, I think young people are very in tune on what's going on. So like, while we're still figuring out what TikTok is, they've already understood how to make a 2-hour video off of TikTok and how to edit it and make it do this and make it do that. And I appreciate it because I also was hard-headed. I didn't listen well. So when I'm talking to these high school kids and they're like, you know, I mean, I don't want to say they're hard-headed, but they do feel like they have all the answers. And in some situations, they do have a lot of the answers. And I don't want to become the person who's like, well, back in my day, you know, I just try to tell them, listen, I am nobody, but if I could have done it differently, this is what I would have done. I try to tell them what's ahead of them, what could be ahead of them, the obstacles they may face. A lot of them, you know, are saying, I don't need to go to college. I can make $1 million doing this. What about this guy? What about look at this YouTuber? Look. And so I'm just like, listen, okay, like, you know, because YouTube and everything is a different world now. So I can't really speak to the tech side of things. I'm just going to tell you what college can prepare you for. But I would say that they listen to an extent, as long as you're upfront with them and let them know what you're ignorant in. They'll kind of listen to your life advice.
How many people here on this panel have, before you go, Sherelle, have caught yourself saying "in my day" or some variation of "in my day"? I mean, any of you say, when I play with Sherelle,
Well, for me, with my 18 to 22-year-olds, which I enjoy 100% coaching, teaching, you know, developing them, they believe you when they trust you. And for them to trust you, you have to continue to build a relationship with them. And that's what's so very important for me with all of my players. I want to make sure I get to know them, and for them to trust you, you have to give them a little bit of yourself. You can't hold back. You can't feel like you're so prideful. And that's why, in a way, I've been, you know, pretty successful, and by the grace of God, for sure. But if on the court and off the court, for me and my experiences, I just honestly believe, you know, my players, they want to see some success before they 100% fully trust you. And you do that by continuing to build those relationships, and not only leaving it as just basketball and work, and asking them, when are you getting shots up? When you come in to watch film, and etc. What I like to do is I like to meet with them outside of the office at times, you know, because I've learned this, you know, once you meet with your players outside of the office, take them to lunch or just do things around campus, they feel that you take your guard down a little bit and you're not coached the entire time. The atmosphere is a little bit more light. So for me, I do believe they trust me 100% because I've given so much of myself. Now, there's a fine line. I am coach on the court. You know, they respect me 100% because that comes with the trust and building the relationship. And I just want to add this, you know, being a coach is probably one of the enjoyments of my life. To have a 18 to 22-year-old here and see them continue to grow and develop and mature by the time they graduate, and maintain that relationship with them when they graduate, when they pursue their career, their dreams, that's the utmost reward you can get as a coach. So I wanted to add that to your question.
So many things that Sherelle just said resonate with me as well as a coach. Does this generation of a young person or student athlete get it? I don't think my generation got it, to be quite frankly, but I will say in my day, it was no, I just feel like, you know, there's so many different variables that enter the conversation when we're talking about this current generation of student and student athlete in particular. You know, do the student athletes understand the value of an education? I I think some of them do, and it also depends completely on context and resources, especially at the high school level. Because if they're surrounded by mentors and support systems that are consistently feeding the same message of education and degree attainment, then I think that, yeah, you're one step away from saying, okay, that's why I'm going to go to college, to go get an education. So that's kind of how I would frame it. Do the student, you know, I coach at a predominantly white private high school. And so the student athletes who are there are sent for a reason. They're sent for degree attainment, and they are sent to compete in their respective sport at a high level. So the population at this school is pretty unique. The competition in classrooms, the competition on the playing fields is extremely high. And the mentorship that the young men there are receiving is really aligned with degree attainment and education. So I think it's unique, but again, everyone is susceptible to Twitter, TikTok, you know, thankful for my 13th offer, thankful for my 15th offer, right? Susan, I always tell my, I can't believe I'm about to say this, all my football players, I say, you're posting all this stuff to Twitter, and then here's Susie, and she's going to say, oh, congratulations, let's go get ice cream. And you're going to go off campus, you're going to get distracted. And then Woodbury Forest is a safe haven, and these young men are driven toward their ultimate goal, which is degree attainment and competing in their sport at the highest level. And these guys can get distracted from Twitter, from Snapchat. Everything you do is a part of your resume that you're building. I was listening to a Sunday service with my girlfriend, who's also in the crowd. She's going to hate that I just said that, but the pastor said that every decision you make is a vote for the person that you want to become. And that is kind of how I view these young people at our school. Every decision they make, every classroom they step in, every person that they see, everything they post on social is a vote for the person that they want to become. And if enough of those votes are aligned with the next step in their life, which is higher ed and degree attainment, then I think that we as coaches and as administrators will be doing our job.
Yeah. There's so many issues, you know, to get to, you know, racism, mental health. But before we take on those subjects in 15 minutes, I want to ask something of you, Sherelle, and this is sort of a women's basketball issue. And I'm just wondering how you felt last month, earlier this month, watching the women's Final Four, watching, you know, LSU, watching South Carolina, you know, watching Iowa, and the ratings were off the chart. The industry is really booming. And two questions. One is just a very general shotgun question. How you felt, did you look at that, contrast that to when you first started playing? Has it grown? And then my second question, and I'll repeat it, what we're discussing here about graduation, as the business gets larger, particularly at the big time basketball and football institutions, academics tend to be compromised. As the money gets bigger, time demands intensify. And what we've always said about women's sports, well, they've got, you know, there's not the same amount of money and all that. But I'm wondering if that has begun to even intrude on the women's game as the recruiting becomes more intense, as the pressure to win becomes more intense, as the stakes get higher, are the same sort of ills creeping in. But first, what your thoughts about just watching this last Final Four and just seeing the ratings and Angel Reese and Carter and, you know.
Great question. So watching the Final Four, and I'll just back up a second. I talked a lot about my mentors, and one of my mentors, he would be happy that I'm on the panel today. Brian Jordan, he played football for the Falcons and baseball for the Braves, St. Louis. He had a great professional career, and he attended many of my games at Georgia. And what he would say to me after the game, he would say to me, Sherelle, when you get a steal or when you get an and one, or if you make a big play, you never show emotion. He's like, the game of women's basketball needs that. And I'm not sure if you remember the name Ivory Latta. She was that type of player back in the day. Anytime she made a big time play, you know, you would see some type of panic, or, you know, she showed emotion. I didn't have that personality, you know, back in the day when I was coming out of Georgia. And I listened to him because, you know, I trusted him, and, you know, we had a great relationship, and what he would say to me carried a lot of weight. And I fast forward to today, I think is great for the game when it's no ill will, you know, towards, you want to make sure you respect the game, respect your sport. And I 100% believe Angel Reese and other, you know, high profile athletes respect the sport. I'm not sure if you guys watched the clip of LSU and their route, you know, in the tournament. Their slogan the entire tournament was "God did." And I'm not sure if anyone watched that video. And I say that because you never know someone's story, like I said earlier, but for the entire team to give recognition to the Lord, that entire run, no one really, we don't talk about that. We talk about, you know, this motion. And I do believe, like I said, when it's not no ill will to the game, to the sport, you know, to your opponent, it's good for the game of basketball and whatever sport that you're participating in. Angel Reese is not the only one that has done it. She won't be the last. You know, it was a lot of other athletes that, you know, showed emotion, you know, but I believe because it was the Final Four game and she was in the limelight, championship game, you know, it was magnified, you know, and I know we all have our personal opinions, but, you know, I sit strongly on that. And whatever, you know, is a positive, you know, matter that's helping our game grow, I'm all for it. And that was the answer to your first question, and you will have to repeat the second question, please.
I may have forgot the second question, but it was about as the ratings increase, as the women's game grows, becomes more lucrative. Will some of the same ills that we see at the men's game at the highest level, you know, graduation not becoming that important, education not becoming that important because time demands are so intensified. Do you think that could creep in to the women's game as well?
I think right now with graduation, I honestly believe certain institutions, certain players will, like for me, it was important for me to get my graduation and play professionally. All right. Some players like Angel Reese, you know, she wants to stay in college for a certain amount of time, you know, because she's making more money. I think that depends on the student athlete, the situation. And I hope I'm answering your question, but it's just people experience and they're having different situations that they're going through at times. And I can't, you know, voice for everyone, but I would say, I think, you know, it is good for the game that student athletes receive their degree, because back in the day it was, you know, not many people have a high school degree, not many people have a college degree. Now everyone has a college degree, and you're working towards your master's and your PhD and your doctorate. So hope I answered your question.
Yeah, that was a good question. I mean, it was a hell of an answer. The question was okay. Just so that we just have about 15, 20 minutes, we will take questions or accept answers happily. I wanted to ask you something, Jackson. You said you coached football at a predominantly white school with a couple of Black athletes. And I guess my thought was, I wonder, how do you teach your athletes about race and racism when so many things happen almost on a daily basis, which affect or maybe they don't, but just how do you teach your athletes, your team of these young, predominantly white kids about race and racism?
That's a great question. I am very transparent with my student athletes, and it's a all boys, all boarding school. So everyone's there. Every faculty member lives on the campus. So I live on the dorm. I live in a faculty apartment connected to the dorm where all of my student athletes live as well. So we eat together, train a lot, and we're around each other all the time. And I'm very transparent with them and how I see the world. So I would tell them all the time, I see the world through the lens of a white man. And, you can't really, I cannot empathize. I can sympathize, but I can't really put myself in the shoes of a Black person in our country. But what I can do is I can do my best to understand their experiences. And so I'm very transparent with the way that I communicate that to my players. And, our boys on our campus, I mentioned that they're there for they're there for a reason. They've either been recruited to the school or someone has put them in touch with the school because there are significant resources. There's amazing faculty members and coaches there. And when the topic of race and racism come up, it's ever present. And it's something that it is continually intertwined through sport and education and really every facet. The permanence of racism, it's in every facet of our society. And I mentioned that I just had the opportunity to finish defending my capstone, and the topic had to do with the transition experiences of Black Division I football players to a predominantly white institution. And what I learned through that allows me now to mentor my student athletes and allow them to understand that there are tenets of critical race theory and transition theory that are impacting our student athletes' lives every day in every facet of their lives, and interest convergence. And they're very real tenets that are affecting especially our high-level African-American student athletes as they matriculate to college. So I'm very fortunate that I have the education and the opportunities I did to gain a deeper understanding of what it may be like to be a Black Division I student athlete at a PWI, but I can't live that experience. That's not my lived experience. And so just being transparent with that and understanding that there's an open dialogue and while there may be a shared and a common ground in my passion for athletics and the development of young people, there is a significant gap between the lived experiences of a Black young man in our country and as a white male in our country. And so opening dialogue, research, and just addressing my worldview has been something that has allowed me to build deep relationships with the young men that don't necessarily look like I do, but it's allowed me to continue to build deep relationships with my student athletes of color. So
one of the things over dinner was, and get me, you Brendan, were talking about the red shirt experience and how you really were pushing your athletes to redshirt. And I think part of your dissertation, you did a whole dissertation about the red shirt experience of Black athletes. And I was trying to figure out how you came out on that, but my sense was that you two come at it a little differently. You push it, you promote it, and I think you had questions about it. I just wanted to clarify that. I don't want to trigger a fight in the last 10 minutes we had, but I thought, oh, this is perfect. You had some issues with it, but you push it.
Well, yes. So I just personally, so I was always taught to see the world for what it is. Some people believe see the world for what it could be, right? I see the world for what it is. I know that majority of my athletes, I've coached basketball and football in high school. Majority of my athletes want to go to the NFL or the NBA. In the real world, less than 3% will make it, right? And I think even in football and basketball, it's lower than that. It might be like under 2%. So Like my coach used to always tell me, the ball will go flat. So when I got to college, fortunately enough, I redshirted. What did that mean for me? That meant I was going to have 5 years. So if I played my cards right, I could get 2 degrees for free, right? Those 2 degrees are going to take me for the next 35 years of my life. Okay. So that's my view. And I tell my athletes, by your junior year in high school, you kind of have a good idea on whether you'll be one of those people, you know, like if you're top 10 in the country, top 20, you know, if you're 5'9", run a 4.8, but you're a good high school football player, you probably won't play professional, right? So what can you do? Put yourself in a position to get 2 pieces of paper, get out of that school debt-free, and then start your process. Now, if you have Alabama, Oklahoma, everybody's knocking on your door, you're a 5-star. Yes, you get there, play right away as a freshman, you know, sky's the limit. But for the majority, as I was told by my father, use them. They will use you. Why would I not get 2 degrees for free? Because I want to go out there my freshman year and play a couple snaps on special teams? Or I want to get in and when we're down 49-0 and play 6 plays? I'm not going to lose a year eligibility to do that. That makes no sense to me. Now, in a perfect world, yeah, you want to go to college, play, score the winning touchdown, have fun. That's just not how it works. When you get to college, you have to earn your way. You're not one of those top guys, you're not going to play, or top people, you're not going to play right away. Okay, now you can grind and, you know, through practice, you show you're the best and you get out there and it's great. Yes, that happens. But I play the percentages. Kobe Bryant used to always say, play the percentages. Percentages tell me, get those 2 degrees for free and you'll be better off in the future than if you go out there and just get 1 degree. And that's just how I feel.
And what was your premise, Jackson? Why did you have an issue?
No issues. That it was really just questions. I'm actually a huge proponent of the redshirt year as well. I redshirted myself, so there's not going to be any arguments on the stage today. Just agreements. I sought to gain a deeper understanding of the redshirt freshman experiences for the Black Division I football players at a PWI. And the reason I chose that topic is really, you know, I just see the world through the lens of my experiences and all of my, you know, I think the majority of our team, I think it was probably 60-40 Black to white student athlete on our football team. And I was just kind of going through college and understanding that, wow, this person's experiences is not like mine at all, not even close. And they're experiencing the same thing in an entirely different way. And so when I was given the opportunity to pursue this degree, I just wanted to gain a deeper understanding of a minoritized and largely exploited demographic. And I did that because a lot of the friends that I made through my experiences don't look like me. And I was just thinking about something that could help one person or help add context to one person's lived experiences as they go to a PWI. By the way, all 65 Power 5 schools are PWIs. And so a lot of these student athletes who are going to be banked on to generate massive revenue for these institutions, these Black football and basketball players, they're going to a place where not a lot of people look like them. Most don't. Their coaches may not look like them. Their mentors may not look like them. And what I wanted to do was just turn over one more stone to gain an understanding of a really popular phenomenon, which is the redshirt freshman year. It's been happening forever, I think since the 70s. And excuse me if I got that wrong. And we don't understand what happens to the young people who experience the redshirt freshman year. And especially for a demographic who I mentioned is minoritized and exploited at these PWIs, it was just my way of saying, I need to find out one thing about their experience, and I need to find out what their experiences are with redshirting as they make this giant life transition to a place where no one really looks like them, except for maybe half their teammates. And I think the University of Virginia, excuse me if I get this wrong, maybe 6% of the population is Black. So not many people on these campuses look like these young people. And I just wanted to gain a deeper understanding of the year to make sure that the support systems and the ways that these people matriculate to college can be better suited to help them matriculate successfully. So,
which leads me to my final question. Do we have any questions for the panel? Okay, we have a couple. Before we get to the question, I just have one question for you, Sherelle, and you, Maurice. And this kind of goes to the HBCU experience. You know, you had two people up here who went to HBCUs. We have three who went to PWIs, and two African Americans went to PWIs. And I was just wondering, Maurice and Sherelle, did you guys get any consideration to attending an HBCU? And the first question, and Maurice, do you think that may have, again, I'm asking you, just you give any answer you want. Do you think had you gone to an HBCU, maybe your career would have been different? But the first question is, did either of you consider taking your talents to an HBCU? Sherelle, you go first. You're here.
Did I ever consider taking my talents to HBCU school? The answer is I did not. I did not. My auntie, she actually graduated from Spelman College, and she's pretty successful and very, very knowledgeable. I've learned a lot from my auntie. She was the only person while I was being recruited to ask me, have you thought about going to a HBCU? And I kind of just pondered it for, a hot second, a millisecond. So I did not consider it. If I could go back, would I have considered it with the knowledge and my growth now? Absolutely, I would have considered it now. But, at that time, it was, go to a Power 5 school where you're going to have the best resources, where you'll get a lot of exposure, where you'll be able to graduate and have the opportunity to play at another elite level. So when I was going into college and coming out of college, those were, that was in my mind from, my mentors and the people that were close in my circle that I trusted.
Mm-hmm. Maurice.
Yeah, no, I never considered it, only because I just think from a facility standpoint, from a facility coaching, networking standpoint, at 18, coming from Youngstown, Ohio, there just wasn't even a comparison. I think that I was just looking at what puts me on the track to get to the NFL. And just being from Ohio, I had seen so many guys go to Ohio State, obviously, and being one of the top players in the country. I just thought that, if I go here, or it was either Ohio State or Notre Dame at the time. And I said, if I go to one of these, I'll have a chance to go to the NFL. But once I got suspended, at HBCU did contact me. Gramblatt contacted me, and still for the same reason prior to in the previous season, before I got suspended, I said I didn't want to go just because I didn't think that they had the infrastructure at the time. And no, I don't know if it's a right or wrong decision, but that was just my decision making behind it.
Okay, right. We still love you. We had a question back here. Oh, I think the mic is coming.
My name is Sandy Thatcher. I'm a Drake Group board member. There's a form of possible athletic compensation that hasn't been discussed here and is not widely discussed at all. It does not fall under the NIL category, nor does it fall under the scholarship category. And it does not actually apply to the sports that are represented by the panelists, but it does apply to sports like swimming, track, tennis, golf. In 2014, I wrote Mark Emmert a letter and asked him why he would not allow Missy Franklin to compete in arena Grand Prix swimming competitions and actually earn prize money that was won by the pros who swam in the same competitions. I know from Missy Franklin's coach at Cal Berkeley that the coaches want their swimmers to swim in these events because they get more experience. They go up against the best swimmers in the world. And I pointed out to him that Katinka Hosu, who graduated from USC, in the single year after she graduated, earned $350,000 in prize money alone, entirely apart from any endorsements. That was just her being in those competitions. So it occurred to me, look, if Missy Franklin can get that kind of money staying in college, she wouldn't have had to leave after 2 years because she was giving up all sorts of endorsement opportunities. So I wonder what people think about that kind of compensation, because nobody seems to be discussing that at all.
Anybody want to take that on? But it seems, if I hear what you're saying, it seems as if Missy Franklin, you guys could take this if you want to. It seems like if Missy Franklin were competing today, that would be moot. That would not be an issue. She'd be making more probably than $350,000. I mean, she'd be a multimillionaire. And I guess that's the point, how the whole NIL thing removes it kind of removes almost, not totally, but in large part, the exploitive element.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think there'll always be exploitation, with a business like this. Jack made a great point earlier about the system gets the results that it's designed for. And I think the NCAA in itself is kind of made to exploit athletes. So I don't think we'll really get rid of the exploitation until we revamp the system.
Mm-hmm.
The revenue generating sports have all the attention or most of the attention. So I hadn't heard of that, but it doesn't surprise me because the vast majority of the revenue is gained is coming from 2 sports and sometimes 3 with hockey or baseball thrown in there at certain institutions. But I do think that it would be moot if it was 2023 and Missy Franklin was swimming. And I think, I forgive me, I don't remember exactly, but there was a wrestler who wrestled for the Olympic team as well and won a gold medal.
Yeah.
And couldn't get the compensation from that as well. So I think those 2 kind of non-revenue generating examples would actually be moot today. So I think that would kind of lend itself to, this is a really good thing, that really good direction that we're moving in intercollegiate athletics.
Yeah. We have 4 minutes left. And I just like each of you, unless anybody has another question. Oh, I'm sorry, we do. All right. Pressure 4 minutes.
I'll try to be really quick. I'm Connie Sotos. I was a former college athlete coach and athletic director, and now a member of the Drake board. I think you'd all agree, I hope you'd all agree that under the best of circumstances, there's a team culture that develops, right? And that team culture has an impact on academic success, life skills, inclusiveness, all the positive things we talk about in a sport experience. I'm really concerned, and I just want to know if you share my concern, that the portal and players coming in and out will potentially compromise that an awful lot, from the student athletes who stay and try to progress through your 4 or 5 years. And now you've got players in, players out. Maybe competitive equity is going to go out the window and championships will all be based on the highest bidder. What is that going to do to the entire experience of being a college athlete?
Sure, you want to take that since you're in
Connie, I do agree with you, Connie, in multiple areas. I do believe that the portal can be really, really good at times, and it could be really, really bad at times. It could be good for reasons such as a student athlete in a really bad situation, and they really urgently need to move on. And it could be bad, in certain situations where, student athletes just choose to leave for just petty, small reasoning at times. With the team chemistry, the team culture, the team camaraderie, I think once you bring in, a player or players for one season. And I've been a part of this as a player and as a coach. Once your team buys in that year specifically, it could be a positive experience or a negative experience, depending on if your team buys into the culture, the philosophy. And I can tell you, the head coach, the coaching staff, the support staff, you all have a common goal. The players, I believe Brendan said this earlier, the players, they do listen and they see what you're doing, and you want to make sure that you're building your program, your family on positive energy. And once the team buys in, that could take a month, that could take 3 months, that could take 6 months, that's not the measure of it. But it's, for me, in my personal opinion, Connie, to answer your question, it's just the matter of, your team, buying in and having more leaders' positivity within your program.
Yeah. You want? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, sir. Yeah, you, right there. Yeah.
How you doing? My name is Carl Berler. I'm a senior hyper major at Virginia State University. And my question is to Ms. Baker and Mr. Claret. So y'all said that one of the main reasons y'all didn't want to attend an HBCU was because that the infrastructure wasn't the same as like a Power 5 school. But wouldn't y'all think like athletes like y'all that's like top of your class and everything like that be like the shift of the balance towards like starting to get the HBCUs the funding that they need? Like example, how Deion Sanders went to Jackson State and switched up their program. So that's my question.
Want to take that?
Oh, no, I think
He was talking to you and Maurice.
I was gonna let her go first. I was being polite.
Well, that's a great question. I do agree with you. I think Deion Sanders did an unbelievable job at Jackson State by bringing a lot of high-profile athletes to the university, and he brought a lot of exposure and attention as well in a positive manner. For me, in particular, I think I mentioned earlier my background of where I grew up, and I grew up in the inner city. And in 6th grade, I was able to move on, transition to a predominantly white school. And I was able to adapt to both cultures. And honestly, for me, and this is just, I'm speaking for myself, with what I saw, what I grew up, the environment, the surrounding, I honestly wanted to move away from that and have a new environment. And I wanted to be able to say that I was able to move out of this type of environment and continue to be successful. I did, go back to my community, and help and volunteer and, be a mentor to others. And I'm still continuing to do that today. But honestly, each decision for each person, student athlete, whatever the case may be, is the best decision for themselves with what situation they may be in. So for me, that was the best decision to make at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for me, I didn't even think like that. I was 18, just, hey, how do I get to the NFL? You just don't even understand, or I'll speak for myself, just like she did. I didn't even have a concept for, me wanting to revolutionize just some sort of movement or anything. And you have to imagine, excuse me, just a lot of kids. A lot of kids are just thinking, hey, how do I get to the NFL? Especially if like you're like a high profile athlete. And you know that the probability of you succeeding is so low. So you're looking to put yourself in the best position that you can see fit. And whatever marketed to you, whatever facilities that you go to, like your mind's in that space. I think once you get older, you start to have more life experience. You go through the system of college athletics, you start to realize that if you're good at an HBCU or PWI, it doesn't matter. They'll come and get you from any place. But I just don't think that I had the ability to think like that, nor did I have anybody around me. I was just happy to get outside of my neighborhood and try to put myself in a position just to go to the NFL. It wasn't in this it's sort of like a social space, like let me build this other system up that could potentially benefit me or benefit HBCUs in some capacity. So, I can see the benefit now. Just like she said, you see what happened with Deion Sanders. You see where Ann Reed tried to go down to Bethune-Cookman and try to reinvigorate what it is that they have, and they've had their challenges. But my mind just wasn't in that. I just didn't have that frame of mind back then.
Yeah. Hey, well, thank you very much. The struggle continues. Hey, Maurice, thank you so much, man. Thank you for making the effort. Brendan, thank you very much. Sherelle, thank you very much. Jackson, thank you very much. Appreciate your energy. Thank you guys so much for your patience. And, thank you. Appreciate it.